Welcome to my new 2028 video, so let's start. As some of you might have heard, Stephen A. Smith is already teasing a 2028 bid after polls showed him almost getting the same amount of support as Tim Walz. So first of all, Florida, barely just above a safe margin. I still do believe Texas, Alaska would drop down from 2024 just below that 12% threshold due to the appeal of Stephen A. Smith. Furthermore, the 1st District of Nebraska, I do think Stephen A. Smith could do quite well in this area of the country. He has a lot of name recognition and is quite an effective communicator, unlike most Democrats, which does help him in states like Iowa and even JD Vance's home state of Ohio. These drop down to 9 to 11% if I'm making a guess. Pretty good for a Democrat in my opinion. After that, we can go to Maine at large. Easily, this trends to the left. I think he does quite well compared to Kamala Harris, who only got barely 6.9%. I think Stephen A. Smith, with his outsider populist perspective, would get around probably like 8 to 10%, so a very big swing to the left in a kind of like pseudo-populist state, you could say Maine is. After that, we can go to Virginia. It was very close for Trump and he almost won it, but still Harris won here by 5.8. I don't think it's going to get closer in 2028 unless Trump has like 55% approval rating. And Stephen A. Smith, commentators that some people like, some others don't, would win here by 7 to 9%. New Jersey, I do think the margin will be quite similar to 2024 due to the trend, especially with Hispanics and males. But even then, I do think Stephen A. Smith would do quite well in New Jersey, pretty much because he's also from New York, and he's gonna get a lot of hype from Democrats as the new Trump, and that could help him in this area, tri-state area, basically. So New Jersey goes for him by, I'm gonna say 6 to 8%. Could be more, could be less. We will see. Can't wait to see the results in New Jersey come 2028. This is where you're gonna see another big swing to the left. It went to Trump. In 2024, there we go, by 9%. I won't lie to you, I could even see it dropping down to lean R, but it depends. I'm gonna keep it as likely R by 5 to 7%, so yeah, barely a likely district. And for the 2nd District of Nebraska, I think Stephen A. Smith, he's easily gonna improve on Kamala's performance 2024, also because he's more charismatic and way funnier than most Democrats out there. And he wins here by 5 to 7%. And for the last likely state, I'm actually going to say that Minnesota will be a likely state for Stephen A. Smith. Still, it's barely in the likely margin category. I think he does pretty good in the debates because of his personality. I think that does help him in basically nationwide, and he would win here barely by 5% on the dot. And yeah, as you can see, that's actually it for the likely states, and it's very tied neck and neck. And now for the first lean state, I'm actually gonna go with New Hampshire. I really don't think a person like Stephen A. Smith would fit in a state like New Hampshire, but neither does Vance though, so that's why it's not that big of a margin. And I think Stephen A. Smith barely improves on Kamala's margin in New Hampshire, but socially, New Hampshire is still quite liberal, so Stephen A. Smith, who is a populist and a way better effective communicator than Democrats, would win here by 3 to 5%, just below that threshold to be a likely state. But yeah, New Mexico, like I said before millions of times now, I don't think Democrats are going to do or improve on with the Latino vote. I expect it to trend yet again to the right. Not as much for VP JD Vance compared to Trump 2020-24. Still, it's not going to flip. New Mexico's probably going to be a lean D state, which is very interesting to see this coalition, to be honest with you. And I think Stephen A. Smith maybe drops off with Latinos and some college grads, but then does quite better with I think he does way better with low propensity voters and just non-educated whites, which helps him grab onto some of these states. So 4% victory in New Mexico. After that, we can move on to Arizona. The issue for Democrats is that I think it's going to be a lean R state for a while unless there's some trends or something big happens because of the border issues, something that Democrats are going to struggle with. But Stephen A. Smith would do quite well, and I think he has already said that his stance is basically similar to Obama's in some way, that is stricter border control, less illegal immigration, but more legal immigration. Still, I'm going to say 1 to 3% victory, or I should say 2%. Yeah, 1 to 3% victory for JD Vance in Arizona. And now let's go to Georgia. Georgia, Stephen A. Smith, I wouldn't be surprised if Stephen A. Smith will get a record-breaking turnout in Georgia. Barely won to Trump by 2.2% in a R+6 national environment. Combined with a populist like Stephen A. Smith who would get probably record-breaking turnout from African-American voters, and the fact that a lot of people would see him as the second coming of Obama, basically, like an Obama-like candidate. The economy, it's going to depend on the economy, FYI, but I'm just going to go right now and say it's going to be easily lean D for Stephen A. Smith. I could see it go up to maybe like 3%, but I'm going to say he wins here by 1 to 3% in Georgia. After that, we can move on to Michigan. The main issue for Democrats was the Muslim vote, Gen Z vote, and the men vote. And I do think Stephen A. Smith would be able to tackle all these three demographics quite effective with his communication, and I do think he would win here and take it back for the Democrats by 1 to 3%, and a major victory for the Democrats here. And now, Nevada, it is very interesting because Stephen A. Smith does have working class appeal. It was a state that went to Trump by 3%, which is really good, but at the end of the day, I don't see those trends reverting for the Democrats, and I'm gonna say it goes to the GOP, but not as much as Arizona. I'm gonna say VP Vance wins here by 0.75% to 2.75%. Bear in mind, it is very close, so I could see it maybe dropping down to Tilt R. And now let's go. Bit of a hot take, actually, because I know some of y'all might not like this, but for Pennsylvania, I really do think Stephen A. Smith would really fit in Pennsylvania quite well. He probably does get enough turnout from Philadelphia, probably does decent enough in the suburbs to win back some of those voters that vote for maybe Biden and then Trump, or they just vote for Trump in 2024 and that's it. I could see Stephen A. Smith also doing well with independents and low propensity voters, and that is why I actually do have Stephen A. Smith winning Pennsylvania by, I'm gonna say 0.75% to 2.75%. Could be tilt, but yeah, very good news for Stephen A. Smith. And now North Carolina, I think if the economy is very bad for the Democrats, I could see Stephen A. Smith pulling off a narrow victory in North Carolina. Still though, it's just gonna be very hard for the Democrats. It really would require the stars to be aligned for the Democrats, and I think that VP JD Vance, as long as Trump is okay, is not too unpopular, would definitely win this state, but I think Stephen A. Smith would really make it a close race in North Carolina, so I think Vance narrowly wins here by 0.75%, and for the last state in Wisconsin, the closest state in 2024, I wouldn't be surprised that in 2028, it'd be the closest race in the union and in the election, and I'm gonna say that because of the trend of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania voting in unison since 1992, that would still hold on in 2028 yet again, and Stephen A. Smith would narrowly win here by 0.5%. But I could see this going to the GOP because he doesn't have that political experience that Vance does in comparison. But as you can see, Stephen A. Smith wins with 286 electoral votes, while VP JD Vance gets 252 electoral votes. Let me know what your map looks like. As always, feel free to leave a like, join the Discord and the channel membership, and have a good rest of your day.